Hello everyone, welcome to a new video for Bitcoin price prediction based on Elliott wave analysis. This is a deep analysis that we do weekly, of course, to see the most possible scenarios, of course, between bullish and bearish, what we might have in the next weeks or even in the next months. And potentially this is the deepest analysis that I ever made for Bitcoin currently because we are in a very critical price action, and we have, of course, a lot of scenarios unfolding right now in this correction, and we're gonna see, of course, which one is the highest and what to expect. So basically on the weekly here we have a 1, 2, 3, 4 and a 5. We finish, of course, an impulse in a wave 1 or a wave A, and after this we're looking for an ABC correction, as we can see, and we saw, of course, a bull run, which it was our last bull run that we just saw, hitting the 6 digits, of course, over 100k. And we saw, of course, 1, 2, 3, 4 and a 5, potentially finishing a wave 1 here, and we're looking currently for a wave 2, right? Because, of course, after finishing a wave 1 or a wave A, you're looking again for a bigger wave 3 or a wave C, right? In A, B, and a C, or in a big wave 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 toward the upside, meaning this blue count here, this is your wave 2 finished, and we start a wave 1 of the wave 3 toward the upside. Currently, we're looking for a wave 2 for the wave 3 in the blue scenario here, and then 4 and a 5 to potentially finish, of course, a big wave 3. And definitely here we'll finish with it, of course, a wave C, right, on the wave 3 in case we are ABC. So until we come to this phase, which is the next bull run, which it should be impulsive for a wave 5 here, for a wave 3 in a wave 5, of course, finishing potentially as well wave C, we still need to see what's going to happen in this correction. Now, this correction is very critical, I believe, and especially, of course, if we take into consideration the time required, of course, for this wave 2 to unfold, is very, very critical because, of course, we have here after a wave 1, you need a wave 2. Now, the time required for a wave 2 taken from this wave 1 is at least the minimum requirement is 0.38, which is in November, almost November 2025, that we might reach a bottom based on the minimum time and minimum requirements, for Bitcoin. Now, don't forget, I always mention, since we are in a wave 3 of a wave 3 for Bitcoin, so remember, we are in a big wave 1 here in the blue scenario, 2, and you're looking for a wave 3. Your wave 3 has to be 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5. And, when it comes to this wave 3 over 3 here, the wave 2 only in Bitcoin tend normally to hit in between the 0.23 and 0.38, missing sometimes even the 0.38. Now, this happens often only in Bitcoin. 70% this happens in Bitcoin when we have a wave 3 over 3. It trick a little bit the traders with a 0.38 without touching it and just fighting gravity again and moving impulsively towards the upside. Would this happen in this bull run, in the next bull run? Well, not 100% sure, but we have to be ready, right? We have to be ready for this scenario that it might happen, that we don't even touch the 51k 800, and then, of course, start to move by fighting the gravity again for Bitcoin, as it does most of the time when it is very, very impulsive. So basically, if we are looking here at this area, if we want to reach at least the minimum requirement time, we're looking at November 2025. Therefore, this move toward the downside right now is just a simple move, of course, from this correction. It's not even yet done. Of course, on the weekly here, we can read it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. However, internally, it is a little bit tricky to read it as an impulse, right? Because of the overlapping somewhere here. And of course, we have started with 3 waves rather than an impulse towards the downside. Meaning, right now, if we are still in a wave A, potentially this wave A is not finished yet. It might extend even as 3 waves down, 3 waves up, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, only to finish a wave A here, and then moving even for higher again, and then lower again, hitting around, of course, the perfect FIB time, which it can be, I mean, the minimum requirement for the FIB time as well, and also the minimum requirement for the FIB levels. And then moving toward the upside, potentially without hitting the 0.38, meaning without getting the low, at least here, yeah, even because anyway, if you take a look at the 0.38, it doesn't break even the lowest wick from this wave 4 here, yeah. So even if we hit the 0.38, it is very, very potential, of course, that we move toward the upside exactly from the 51k 800 in case we touch this 0.38. However, it would be nicer, of course, if we touch it anyway, because I love that to even Bitcoin, of course, still respecting the FIB time of Elliott wave as well, and of course the FIB level as well. So meaning, yeah, but we have to be ready. We have to be ready since the middle here. We have to be ready and to check the structure toward the downside when it is done and ready to move for higher. So these are the main, this is the main idea here, that potentially that we did not yet finish a wave A here. You're looking for a wave B potentially later on, and then still looking for a wave C to finish all around, potentially even, yeah, at least here in November, yeah, potentially. So this is the main idea right now. Now, if we dive deeper, of course, to see what are the bullish and the bearish scenarios still possible for this scenario. Well, don't forget that we still have a bullish scenario here since of course, the current, the last bull run that we had, if you remember, where you potentially have an ABC and you have 1112s here, and 3, 4, 5, and then 4, 5, and potentially you're still looking for a wave, a 4 and a 5 for your final 1, 2 here, because of course the invalidation of this bullish scenario is still not taken at the 65k 175. To make sure that this scenario will not unfold a wave 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5, we need still, of course, to take the 65k 100 soon or later. Yeah, so if we are in a bear market or in a bullish market, we still, of course, need to take this price. Even if we are in a bear market, we might, of course, move higher and then come back towards the wave C again. Yeah, so, but it's very important to invalidate potentially this 65k. So expect that even with this move toward the downside with the wave A here, potentially that we hit the 65 and moving. Of course, there is a scenario for it. If this happen, of course, therefore we're gonna forget totally, of course, about this scenario. Now, I'm mentioning it just because we are still ranging in the 4 times of a wave 2, between the 4 and the 5 time, which is, well, the 6th time is becoming incredibly impossible, yeah. But with the 4 and the 5, it still occasionally still can be a wave 4, ranging 4 times to 5 times a wave 2 here. Yeah, so meaning this wave 2 in term of alternation still occasionally, yeah, can be, especially in a very special corrective wave, which it can be W, X, Y, and X and a Z. Yeah. So this is the most complex structure that we can get. Potentially, it still can be a wave 4, and especially that we are still over the normal FIB levels for a wave 4, which is a 0.5, not hit yet. So potentially, if we hit still this potential scenario, which is, of course, can be a wave Z, as you can see, W, X, O, Y, X, and a Z, potentially finishing a wave 4 inside the FIB level, of course, of a wave 4, 0.5, and still definitely has a potential, of course, for a wave 5 toward the upside, which is a bullish scenario, right? Which is a bullish scenario. So basically, it's still possible. This is what I would say, that a bullish scenario is still, of course, possible for Bitcoin, and based on the time and on the FIB level as well, on the structure here that we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5 is still potentially possible. Yeah, so this is what I would now. How much possible? Of course, it's not the highest possibility, but still a probability that it can unfold, and we cannot just forget about it. So Next, this is a bull run for the daily, the short daily here, or the bearish market for the daily is the following, where you have, of course, finished W, X, and a Y as a wave 4, and you finish here as a triangle or as a truncated flat. Both case scenarios will lead you to double 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a 4, and a 5. You finished the bull run, you finished a wave 1 as explained in the parabolic weekly, and we start, of course, our move for a wave 2. Don't forget that with this wave 2, we can take the invalidation of the bullish, which is, of course, this last wave. We have to take it sooner or later, meaning this is definitely a target sooner or later for Bitcoin, and then starting after a wave 2 here, potentially a little bit deeper even, and moving for higher, and starting a bull run for a wave 3 over 3. Now, as you have realized, the time required, of course, for this wave 2 is not that easy, that we're gonna get just simply ABC and moving toward the upside. Now, definitely we can reject and rebound correctively and then continue toward the downside for a 0.38, which is the minimum time required for a wave 2. Meaning this, of course, correction complex structure that we are looking at potentially not finished yet for a wave A, potentially getting a wave B and a wave C, of course, in between this perfect fib time and perfect fib level as well, which are at least the 0.23, 0.38. Now 0.23 is not just like enough just to move toward the upside. Of course, it's gonna break it at least to the middle in between, and then moving for higher in case it want to trick us as usual for Bitcoin wave 3 over 3 fighting gravity again. So these are the scenarios. This is the main scenario here. Whatever we're gonna have in this area, it is not necessarily to be an ABC, but the idea here, what I'm saying, is the correction that we're gonna get inside this area is gonna need a lot of time, and of course gonna reach this area potentially soon or later, potentially starting from November 2025, and the perfect time, of course, would be the next year in May, potentially even to start a bull run toward the upside. Now let's seek the possibilities of this corrective wave. What are the possibilities, what we might have inside this area? If we move on the 4-hour chart here, so for the 4-hour chart, we're gonna start with the most possible scenarios. And before we start with it, I'm gonna just lay down, of course, the time here. And I think here I'm gonna need, of course, the daily. It would be much more explained better on the daily actually to see the time with it. Yeah, so I'm gonna zoom in. Here we go. So as we explained, we need the time for a wave 2, at least a 0.38 and so on, the fib level as well. We're gonna start to lay down the possibilities one after the other. So potentially currently we are in this move toward the downside, where we have potentially here, of course, a wave A in 3 waves. As you can see, in these 3 waves, we are looking at A, B, and a C to finish a wave A here. And after this wave A, you're potentially looking for W, X, and a Y here. Yeah, so basically your X has been given, and currently we're looking potentially to a wave Y, where we saw already this can be corrective wave inside it. So basically, yeah, let's move on the 4-hour chart. Actually, it can be much more seen as well. So basically, we're looking for a wave X here, finished with, of course, 3 waves down. This can be definitely, of course, a correction, and we're moving definitely after it toward the downside and creating a wave Y, of course, after as well A, B, and a C for a wave Y potentially. Yeah. So this is one of the highest scenarios that it might happen, and it might unfold, of course, next, where we are looking at 3 waves up, 3 waves down, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 potentially for a wave Y to finish a wave B. And this wave B will be finished, of course, in W, X, and a Y potentially to hit this blue box based on the time as well taken from the wave A here. For a wave B, again, of course, hitting the blue box between the times required. The perfect time would be, of course, between the 0.618 and the 1-to-1 fib time. And 0.5, 0.6 are the most common target, of course, for a wave B here. and then moving toward the downside. Potentially, of course, it can be impulsive for a wave C, since we finished 3 waves down, 3 waves up, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5 for a wave C. Would this be enough to finish this scenario, of course, as a bear market, in knowing that we have hit the 0.23, and KG always mentioned that 0.23 can move with a bull run? Well, of course not, because the FIB time, the minimum requirement, still not reached yet. Meaning this 3 waves down toward the downside is still required. Of course, 3 waves up. Again, a move toward the downside, again, to reach potentially in between the 0.23 and 0.38, potentially hitting the 0.38 and maybe not, and start the move toward the upside. So basically, this is what I'm expecting as highest possibility right now for the next scenarios. Now, the next highest possibility is the following. You have an A, B, and a C as well. You finished a wave A. Now your wave B is very shallow in time for a wave B here, and you're looking to a zigzag here as a wave 1. You're looking for a corrective wave 2 in a diagonal, and then 3, 4, and a 5 to finish a wave C. Meaning A, B, C might be finished somehow like this. Can be possible, of course, it is possible, but yeah, very low possibility a little bit, just because of the wave B, very shallow in time. After this, of course, the same scenario is required. 3 corrective waves toward the upside, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, again reaching the perfect blue box for a new bull run. A third possibility is the following. Now, this possibility is higher than the previous one, where you have already 3 waves down for a wave A. You have a corrective flat here. Of course, it can be WX and a Y, or it can be a flat, but WXY much higher potential. Finishing a wave B short, and you're moving in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 impulse toward the downside to finish a big A, B, and a C. Toward the downside, of course, that it might take, of course, the form of a zigzag as well. After this, the same scenario has to repeat. Something else has to unfold here as corrective. It is not necessarily 3 waves. It can be triangle, guys. It can be WXY. It can be zigzag. It can be anything. It's a wave B again. And in this case scenario, we're looking, of course, after it for a move toward the downside to the perfect blue box, potentially for a new bull run. Before the final, of course, possibility, we have the WXY, which we have mentioned so much time, and it has a high possibility as well. And that because of still the corrective structure that we get inside here with lack of momentum for the bullish. Meaning you finished here 3 waves toward the downside. There's W, 3 waves for the X, again 3 waves for the Y, and 3 waves for the X, and you're still looking for 3 waves for the Z. Very nice structure as WX and a Y potentially has started to unfold, yeah, as a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for your wave A, correction, wave C, finishing a wave Z here, and finishing a big structure, of course, potentially as W, X, and a Y, again to hit, of course, the blue zone for a new bull run sooner or later. Don't forget that your X can be a flat, it can be a triangle, or can be even a zigzag, can be anything, right? So therefore, our bearish market for Bitcoin is gonna extend for a long time. Of course, corrective is gonna be hard to trade efficiently. Of course, this, guys, Bitcoin, we know in a bear market is very, very I would say like riskier than being in a bull run, right? So this is the idea. That's why we love bull runs at the end. So this is one of the highest right now because it is unfolding somehow. It has finished most of the main structure, and you are still corrective and seeking for lower, potentially in an impulse, as we saw, of course, on the 4-hour chart. I'm gonna explain. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, meaning, of course, it is a start of an impulse toward the downside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for a WXY, potentially zigzag toward the downside. So that's why, and we have finished, of course, correctively here. It cannot be really an ending or leading diagonal. Your wave 5 is longer than wave 3, so no diagonals. Higher potential, we are WXY here. Yeah, so these are the scenarios. Now, the last one, we will say, okay, why you're so bearish? Where is the bullish one? Here we go. We might have a bullish one, definitely. The only bullish scenario that you might have in this case scenario is having 3 waves down for a wave A. You're still looking for a wave B toward the upside as an expanding flat wave B. The minimum time required for this wave B, anyway, taken from the wave A here, is a 1-to-1 fib level for a wave B, potentially as a regular flat, and then moving toward the downside after it. Yeah. So a wave B here in an A, B, and a C toward the upside. Of course, this wave C has to be definitely 111, 3, 4, 5, 4, 5 to reach the perfect fib level 1.38, 1.618, 100K, 105. Right, so these are the possibilities, of course, for the bullish. This is the only bullish scenario that I can see right now, and of course there is another one, which is this one, right? It is a very short one. Of course, if you are in W, X, and a Y, your wave Y might be a kind of like a flat here, and then moving to the downside again. But it might not reach, of course, the same as the one which is much more bullish, of course, in 1112s, right? So these are the differences between the WXY and the other one. Now, the highest possibility, of course, for me is still potentially the WXY. The next one is, of course, can be this one. Yeah, it is possible, since you finished also 3 waves down and you finished a correction here. And this is corrective already, potentially, and you got an impulse here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for your wave 1, potentially 2, 3, 4, 5. But what is coming first, before coming to this one, is exactly the WXY. And that because in your WX and a Y, you would like to see, of course, a wave Y, an impulse, correction, impulse, right, which can finish a structure here. And then next, we're gonna see if we are still corrective, then okay, we can come and say, okay, potentially that this scenario is unfolding because we are corrective. It's gonna continue for a bigger wave 3, potentially 4 and a 5 again. Yeah, finishing at the 1-to-1 fib level taken from the wave A, B, and a C, of course, at the 62K. Of course, 61K can be hit as well. So these are the possibilities step by step. I believe that we have to check this one first. If we move here for kind of like W, X, and a Y, yeah, we have to check this one. After moving higher, if we move with this one, to be checked after it is, of course, the bullish one, which is this one. Are we moving for higher or are we moving for lower? So this is the difference. And from there, we take it, of course, exactly if we move down. Therefore, we have to proceed with this one, definitely with an impulse towards the downside. And we see, of course, step by step. But higher potential, guys, for now is to watch is this possibility moving down a little bit, potentially rejection and moving higher, or potentially 3, 4, and a 5, or a zigzag towards the downside in W, X, Y, X, and a Z. So these are the highest possibility right now. We need to watch, of course, what's gonna happen. Now, if we move a little bit on the 1-hour chart for a little bit of micros, what's going on here? So as you can see, we were looking here for a possibilities of 1112s as explained in our scenario, where you might have, of course, a very high wave 3 toward the upside, or you are in a wave B here to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 after a correction, WXY. You're looking for an impulse toward the downside, whether in a zigzag or in an impulse later on to be discovered 4 and a 5, finishing exactly on these fib levels. That was it for Bitcoin. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your likes and comments. See you in the next one. Bye-bye.